He shared his meal with a hungry alien child. Years later, she returned with an army, the last gift. The evacuation sirens had been silent for 3 days now. Marcus Chen stood at the observation deck of Terra Station, watching the last transport ships disappear into the starless void. Earth hung below him like a dying ember, her atmosphere choked with toxic clouds and her oceans turning black from industrial poison. At 72 years old, Marcus had volunteered to stay behind with the skeleton crew, maintaining the orbital station's life support systems. Someone had to keep the lights on until the very end. The station felt like a tomb now. Where once 5,000 souls had lived and worked, only 12 remained. Marcus pulled his worn engineering jacket tighter around his shoulders and made his way through the empty corridors. His footsteps echoed in the silence, a lonely rhythm that had become his constant companion. The artificial gravity felt heavier these days, or maybe that was just his age catching up with him. In the hydroponics bay, Marcus checked the readings on the few remaining food synthesizers. Most had been packed up and shipped to humanity's new colony worlds. Only 3 units remained operational, producing barely enough nutrition paste to keep the skeleton crew alive for another month. After that, they too would abandon this place and let Earth die in darkness. A soft thud from the loading bay caught his attention. Marcus frowned. All scheduled deliveries had ended weeks ago. He grabbed his scanner and headed toward the sound, his old joints protesting with each step. The loading bay was supposed to be sealed and depressurized. What he found there changed everything. A small emergency pod sat in the center of the bay, its hull scarred and smoking. The airlock had cycled automatically, responding to the pod's distress beacon. Marcus approached carefully, his scanner detecting weak life signs inside. Through the pod's cracked viewport, he saw something that made his breath catch. It was a child, but not human. The creature had pale blue skin that shimmered like starlight, and delicate features that seemed almost crystalline. Large, violet eyes stared at him through the glass, filled with pain and fear. The being wore what looked like the remnants of a spacesuit designed for a much smaller frame. Marcus had seen images of the Cathari before. They were one of the younger spacefaring species, peaceful traders who rarely interacted with humanity. This child couldn't be more than 8 or 9, years old by their species standards. What was it doing here, alone and injured? The pod's emergency systems were failing. Marcus worked quickly, using his engineering override codes to open the hatch. The child tumbled out, gasping in the station's atmosphere. A universal translator, clipped to the remains of its suit, crackled to life. "Please," the child whispered, its voice barely audible. "Help me. They destroyed our ship. Everyone is gone." Marcus knelt beside the small being, his medical scanner revealing internal injuries and severe malnutrition. The child's energy readings were critically low. Without immediate nutrition, it would die within hours. "What's your name, little one?" Marcus asked gently. "Zira," the child replied, violet eyes struggling to focus. "I am Zira of the Cathari. Our ship was carrying refugees when the pirates attacked. I was in the escape pod when it malfunctioned." Pirates. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. Even as humanity abandoned their dying world, the scavengers and raiders were already moving in, picking off the weak and defenseless. This child had somehow drifted here by chance, one of the last places in human space where anyone still remained. "You're safe now, Zira," Marcus said, though he wondered if that was true. The station had minimal medical facilities and he was no doctor, but the child needed food immediately. Marcus carried Zira to the medical bay, his aging back protesting the additional weight. The child was surprisingly light, as if their bones were hollow like a bird's. He activated the emergency medical protocols and began scanning for compatible nutrients. The results were not encouraging. Cathari physiology was too different from human biology. None of the station's standard medical supplies would work. The only option was the food synthesizers, but their programming was locked to human nutritional requirements. Marcus made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He accessed the synthesizer's core programming and began modifying the molecular patterns. It was dangerous work. One mistake could create poison instead of food. But as he worked, watching Zira's life signs weaken on the monitors, He knew he had no choice. It took him 6 hours to reprogram one of the 3 remaining synthesizers. 6 hours while Zira slipped in and out of consciousness, her small hand gripping his with surprising strength. When the machine finally hummed to life and produced its first batch of Cathari-compatible nutrition paste, Marcus felt tears of relief on his cheeks. "Here, little one," he said, helping Zira sit up. "Try this." The child ate slowly at first, then with growing hunger. Color returned to her pale blue skin, and her violet eyes brightened with each bite. Marcus watched, feeling something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. "Why?" Zira asked when she had finished eating. "Why help me? Your people and mine barely know each other." Marcus considered the question. Why had he risked reprogramming the synthesizer? Why had he given up one of humanity's last resources for an alien child? "Because it was the right thing to do," he said finally. "Because when we see someone suffering, we help them. That's what makes us human." Over the following days, as Zira recovered her strength, Marcus learned more about her people and their tragic circumstances. The Cathari were fleeing their homeworld, which had been consumed by a plague that turned their crystalline cities to dust. The refugee ships had been heading to the outer rim when pirates began hunting them down for their advanced technology. "My people are dying," Zira told him as they sat together in the observation lounge watching Earth turn slowly below them. "The plague spreads faster than we can evacuate. Soon there will be no Cathari left in the universe." Marcus felt the weight of those words. Here were 2 dying species, human and Cathari, brought together by chance on a dying world. The irony was almost too much to bear. The other station personnel had been initially suspicious of Zira, but her gentle nature and obvious youth soon won them over. She helped where she could, learning to read human instruments and assisting with maintenance tasks. Her natural affinity for energy systems impressed even the veteran engineers. "She understands quantum mechanics better than some of our academy graduates," Chief Engineer Rodriguez told Marcus one day. "It's like she can see the energy patterns directly." Marcus nodded, watching Zira work alongside the human technicians. Despite everything she had lost, the child maintained an optimism that inspired everyone around her. She spoke of finding her people, of somehow stopping the plague, of building a better future among the stars. 2 weeks after Zira's arrival, long-range sensors detected an approaching fleet. Marcus's heart sank as he identified the ships. Cathari design but broadcasting distress signals. More refugees, but the station couldn't support them. They were already stretched beyond their limits. "It's the Moonlight Harmony," Zira said, her voice filled with excitement as she studied the sensor readings. "My aunt's ship. She's alive." The reunion was bittersweet. Commander Lyrae of the Moonlight Harmony was indeed Zira's aunt, and her relief at finding the child safe was overwhelming. But her ship carried 3,000 refugees, all that remained of a once mighty civilization. They needed supplies, medical aid, and most critically, food. Marcus made another decision that would change the course of history. He gave the Cathari refugees his remaining 2 food synthesizers, along with all the technical specifications for reprogramming them. It meant the human skeleton crew would have to abandon the station immediately, their mission cut short. But looking at the desperate faces of the Cathari children aboard the refugee ship, he knew it was the only choice that mattered. "You're giving us everything," Commander Lyrae said, her crystalline features reflecting her amazement. "Why would you sacrifice so much for strangers?" "Because kindness doesn't recognize borders," Marcus replied. "Because when we lift others up, we lift ourselves up too." The transfer took 2 days. Marcus personally oversaw the installation of the synthesizers aboard the Cathari ship, teaching their engineers how to maintain and operate the human technology. He watched as Zira helped translate between the species, her quick mind bridging the gap between human engineering and Cathari science. On the final day, as the human skeleton crew prepared to abandon Terra Station forever, Zira approached Marcus with something in her hands. It was a small crystalline device pulsing with soft blue light. "This is a memory crystal," she said. "It contains everything about this place. about what you did for me, for us. My people will remember, Marcus Chen of Earth. We will never forget. Marcus knelt to accept the gift, feeling its warm energy against his palms. Take care of yourself, little star. Make something beautiful in this universe. The Cathari fleet departed the next morning, disappearing into the vast darkness between stars. Marcus and his crew took the last human transport away from Terra Station, leaving Earth to its slow death. As they pulled away, Marcus watched the station's lights dim and go dark. The last human outpost in their home system was finally abandoned. But in his pocket, the memory crystal pulsed with gentle warmth. A reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can echo across the universe in ways we never imagine. The return. 25 years had passed since the last human ships left Earth's solar system. Marcus Chen, now 97 years old, stood in the garden dome of Terra Station, which had somehow become his permanent home. The abandoned orbital platform had been his sanctuary for a quarter century, a place where he could tend to his memories and watch over humanity's birth world. The station had changed dramatically since the evacuation. Marcus had spent decades jury-rigging systems, growing his own food in expanded hydroponics bays, and converting entire sections into workshops where he crafted art from salvaged materials. His hair had turned silver, and his hands shook slightly, but his mind remained sharp. The solitude had become a companion rather than a burden. Earth itself had begun to heal in humanity's absence. The toxic clouds were clearing, revealing patches of blue sky for the first time in decades. Forests were slowly returning to continents that had been industrial wastelands. Life, it seemed, found a way to persist even in the darkest times. Marcus was pruning his tomato plants when the proximity alarms began to chime. He moved slowly to the control center, his old bones protesting with each step. The sensor display showed something impossible. A massive fleet was approaching the solar system, their ships unlike anything in human records. The lead vessel was enormous, easily 10 times larger than the greatest human dreadnoughts. Its hull seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed, with internal light. Behind it came hundreds of smaller ships, all bearing the same crystalline construction. Marcus had seen similar designs once before, long ago, but these ships were far more advanced than anything the Cathari refugees had possessed. A communication request appeared on his console. Marcus accepted it, wondering who could possibly be calling an abandoned human outpost. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a face he recognized despite the passage of time. Zira stood before him, but she was no longer the frightened child he had saved. She had grown into a tall, graceful being with the same pale blue skin and violet eyes, but now she wore robes of shimmering fabric that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Her crystalline features had matured into something breathtakingly beautiful, combining the elegance of her species with a wisdom that spoke of great trials overcome. "Hello, Marcus Chen of Earth," she said, her voice carrying the same gentleness he remembered. "I told you once that my people would never forget. I have returned to honor that promise." Marcus felt tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. "Zira? Little star? Is it really you?" "It is I, though I am no longer little," she replied with a smile that could have lit up galaxies. "I am now High Commander Zira of the Cathari Empire, and I come bearing gifts beyond measure." The impossibility of those words struck Marcus. Empire. The Cathari had been a dying species when he last saw them, refugees fleeing a plague that was destroying their civilization. How had they not only survived, but apparently thrived? "I don't understand," Marcus said. "Your people were dying. The plague was defeated thanks to you," Zira interrupted. "The food synthesizers you gave us, the technology specifications, they contained something our greatest scientists had never seen before. Human genetic markers embedded in the molecular patterns. When we analyzed them, we discovered that human DNA contained natural immunity factors that could be adapted to combat our plague." Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. "That's impossible. I just modified the machines to produce compatible nutrition." "You did far more than that," Zira continued. Your modifications inadvertently created a template that showed us how to enhance our own immune systems. Within 5 years of our departure, we had developed a cure. Within 10 years, we had not only saved our species but evolved beyond our previous limitations. The main screen split, showing images of incredible crystal cities floating among the stars, vast fleets of ships exploring unknown galaxies, and billions of Cathari living in harmony across countless worlds. The dying species Marcus had known had become a galactic power. "We built our empire on the foundation of your kindness," Zira said. "Every ship in our fleet carries the symbol of the Terran gift, a small blue crystal that reminds us of the day a human engineer chose to save one alien child instead of preserving resources for his own people." Marcus wiped his eyes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was hearing. "I did what anyone would do." "No," Zira said firmly. "You did what humans do. We have studied your species extensively over the years, Marcus. We have learned that this capacity for selfless compassion is not common among spacefaring civilizations. It is uniquely, remarkably human." The conversation was interrupted by another alert from the station's sensors. A new fleet was approaching the solar system, but these ships were different. Dark, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Marcus's aged sensors could barely track their approach. "The Vorthan Empire," Zira said, her expression growing serious. "They have been expanding aggressively across this sector, enslaving or destroying every species they encounter. We have been tracking their movements for months." "Are they coming here for the station?" Marcus asked, though he suspected the answer. "They are coming for you, specifically," Zira replied. "The Vorthans have learned about the human who helped save the Cathari. They believe that by capturing and studying you, they can unlock the secrets of human adaptability and compassion. They want to weaponize the very qualities that make your species special." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He was just one old man on an abandoned station. What could the Vorthans possibly want with him? "They don't understand that you cannot weaponize kindness," Zira continued. "But their ignorance makes them dangerous. Their fleet is 3 times larger than ours, and they have weapons that can crack planets. We came as quickly as we could when we detected their approach." "We?" Marcus asked. Zira smiled, and for a moment he saw the child she had once been. "Did you think I would face this threat alone? I have brought friends." The sensor display updated, showing that the crystalline Cathari fleet was not alone. Ships of dozens of different designs were emerging from hyperspace, representing species Marcus had never seen before. Organic vessels that looked grown rather than built, geometric ships that folded space around themselves, and even massive creatures that seemed to be living starships. "The Alliance of the Grateful," Zira explained. "Over the years, the Cathari have shared the story of the Terran gift. We have encountered many species that were dying, desperate, or lost. In each case, we asked ourselves what Marcus Chen would do. We chose kindness over profit, cooperation over conquest. Each species we helped became our allies, and together we have built something unprecedented in galactic history." Marcus stared at the display, watching as hundreds of alien ships took defensive positions around Earth's solar system. All of this because he had once shared his food synthesizer with a hungry child. "The Vorthans will be here within hours," Zira continued. "They expect to find a defenseless human and an abandoned world. Instead, they will find the combined might of 37 species united by a simple principle: that kindness is the greatest strength in the universe." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Marcus found himself at the center of a massive fleet of ships, each one representing a species that had been touched by the ripple effects of his long-ago decision. Zira beamed aboard the station with a small team of her officers, and Marcus marveled at how they had grown and changed. "You maintained this station alone for 25 years? Asked Commander Thane, Zira's second-in-command. His crystalline features showed amazement as he studied the improvised systems and artistic modifications Marcus had made. "It gave me purpose," Marcus replied. "Someone needed to watch over Earth while she healed. And heal she has," Zira said, studying the sensor readings from the planet below. The atmospheric composition has improved dramatically. The radiation levels are dropping. In another century, Earth could be fully habitable again. You think there's hope for her? Marcus asked. There is always hope, Zira replied. That is perhaps the most important lesson you taught me. The Vorthan fleet arrived like a plague of locusts, their dark ships blotting out the stars. Their formation spoke of arrogance and overwhelming force. They had come expecting easy victory, but what they found was something else entirely. High Admiral Krosk of the Vorthan Empire appeared on the communication channel, his reptilian features, twisted in confusion and rage. Behind him, Marcus could see the bridge of a massive dreadnought bristling with weapons. Cathari, Krosk hissed. You interfere with Vorthan expansion. Surrender the human and we will allow you to retreat with minimal losses. Zira stepped forward, her presence radiating calm authority. I am High Commander Zira of the Alliance. Of the grateful, the human you seek is under our protection, as is this entire system. I suggest you withdraw. Krosk's laughter was like grinding metal. You face the might of the Vorthan Empire with a collection of weaklings and pacifists. We have crushed 1,000 worlds. What can you possibly do to stop us? Zira's smile was serene but carried an edge of steel. We can show you what happens when kindness is backed by strength, and when gratitude becomes a weapon more powerful than any you possess. The first shots came from the Vorthan fleet, massive energy beams that could vaporize asteroids. But they never reached their targets. The Alliance ships responded with a coordinated defense that was beautiful to behold. Energy barriers woven from crystalline matrices, space-time distortions that redirected attacks back at their sources, and swarms of tiny ships that moved like schools of fish, impossible to target effectively. The battle was not the one-sided massacre the Vorthans had expected. Every species in the Alliance brought unique technologies and tactics, all working in perfect harmony. Marcus watched from Terra Station's observation deck as the combined fleet fought not with hatred or aggression, but with the desperate grace of those protecting something precious. How is this possible? He asked Zira, who stood beside him watching the engagement. Because we learned from you, she replied. The Vorthans fight for conquest and glory. We fight for love and gratitude. Which do you think is the stronger motivation? The Alliance, the battle above Earth, raged for 3 days and nights. Marcus had never seen anything like it. Hundreds of ships engaged in a deadly dance among the stars, energy weapons painting the darkness in brilliant colors. From Terra Station's observation deck, it looked like someone had shattered a rainbow and scattered the pieces across space. But this was unlike any battle in the history books. The Alliance of the Grateful fought, not with the desperate fury of cornered animals, but with the coordinated precision of a symphony orchestra. Each species contributed their unique abilities to the whole, creating tactics that the Vorthans had never encountered. Marcus watched as the Zenthari ships, looking like living coral reefs, used their bio-neural networks to predict Vorthan movements before they happened. The geometric, crystalline collective vessels folded space-time itself, allowing Alliance ships to appear where the enemy least expected them. Most impressive of all were the Cathari command ships, their crystal hulls pulsing with energy as they coordinated the entire fleet with telepathic precision. Your Admiral Krosk is learning that superior numbers mean nothing when you face superior cooperation, Zira said, standing beside Marcus at the observation window. Her violet eyes reflected the distant explosions like captured starlight. The tide of battle turned on the second day, when the Vorthans made a critical mistake. Frustrated by their inability to break the Alliance lines, they began targeting civilian ships and installations, hoping to demoralize their enemies. What they achieved was the opposite. Marcus watched in amazement as species that had never fought together before began operating as a single organism. The attack on a Cathari hospital ship prompted an immediate response from the Threnodi war singers, whose sonic weapons could shatter Vorthan armor from impossible distances. When the enemy targeted a Zenthari nursery vessel, the normally peaceful Gardner species revealed weapons that turned entire Vorthan squadrons into space dust. They're fighting for each other, Marcus realized. not just for themselves but for everyone in the Alliance. That is the power of the gift you gave us, Zira replied. Not just the food synthesizer, but the understanding that we are all connected. That when one suffers, we all suffer. When one triumphs, we all triumph. On the third day, as the Vorthon fleet found itself pushed back and severely damaged, Admiral Krosk appeared on the communication channels. His reptilian features showed the strain of defeat, but his eyes still burned with malice. "This changes nothing, human," he snarled at Marcus. "The Vorthon Empire spans 1,000 systems. We will return with 10 times the ships, 100 times the firepower. We will burn your precious Earth to ash and scatter your allies to the void." Marcus stepped forward, feeling the weight of his 97 years but standing straight with dignity. "You still don't understand, do you, Admiral?" "Understand what, old man? Why you lost?" Marcus moved closer to the communication screen, his weathered face calm. "You came here with the strongest fleet in the sector. You had superior numbers, advanced weapons, centuries of military experience. By every measure that matters to you, you should have won easily." Krosk's eyes narrowed. "Your point? My point is that you measured everything except what actually matters," Marcus continued. "These beings didn't fight well together because they trained together or because they share the same technology. They fought well together because they care about each other. Because 25 years ago, one species made a choice to help rather than hoard, to share rather than take. That choice spread like ripples on a pond, touching dozens of civilizations, creating bonds stronger than any military alliance." The old engineer gestured to the diverse fleet surrounding them. "You see ships and weapons and tactical formations. I see families who have chosen to stand together. You can bring 10 fleets, 100 fleets. It won't matter. You can't defeat love with violence, Admiral. You can only make it stronger." For a moment something flickered in Krosk's eyes. Perhaps doubt, perhaps understanding. But it passed quickly, replaced by the familiar rage. "Pretty words, human. We shall see how pretty they sound when your world burns." The transmission ended, and the remaining Vorthon ships began their retreat. But Marcus knew this victory was only temporary. The Admiral had been right about one thing. The Vorthon Empire was vast and would certainly return with greater force. "What do we do now?" he asked Zira. She smiled, and in that expression he saw both the child he had saved and the leader she had become. "Now we do what humans do best. We adapt, we innovate, and we inspire others to be better than they thought possible." Over the following weeks, Terra Station became the headquarters for something unprecedented in galactic history. Representatives from dozens of species worked alongside Marcus to develop new technologies and strategies. The old engineer found himself at the center of the greatest collaborative effort the galaxy had ever seen. His decades of solitary work on the station proved invaluable. The improvised systems he had built contained innovations that none of the advanced species had considered. His fusion of human engineering with salvaged alien technology created hybrid solutions that were both elegant and effective. "You've been conducting high-level research for 25 years without realizing it," explained Dr. Seath, a Cathari scientist whose crystalline body pulsed with excitement. "These modifications to the environmental systems could revolutionize terraforming technology across the galaxy." Marcus chuckled. "I was just trying to keep the tomatoes growing. And in doing so, you developed agricultural techniques that could feed billions," Scythe replied. "Human ingenuity combined with necessity produces remarkable results." The most significant breakthrough came when Marcus suggested combining human neural interfaces with Cathari crystalline technology and Xanthari bioneural networks. The resulting system allowed near-instantaneous communication across vast distances, turning the entire Alliance fleet into a single, coordinated organism. "It's like giving the galaxy a nervous system," Marcus explained to a gathering of Alliance leaders. "Every ship, every world, every station connected in real time. When the Vorthons return, they won't just face individual fleets. They'll face the collective intelligence and resources of 37 species working as one." The project took months to implement, with Terra Station serving as the central hub. Marcus found himself working 18-hour days despite his age, driven by a sense of purpose he hadn't felt since the early days of human space exploration. The diverse team of engineers and scientists treated him not as a relic from a dying species, but as a master craftsman whose expertise was essential to their success. During quieter moments, Zira would find him in his garden dome, tending to the plants that had kept him company for so many years. "Do you regret staying here?" she asked one evening as they watched Earth turn slowly below them. The planet looked healthier than it had in Marcus's lifetime, with green patches visible through the clearing atmosphere. "No," Marcus replied without hesitation. "This is where I needed to be, where I was meant to be. If I had left with the evacuation, none of this would have happened. You would have lived out your final years among your own people in comfort and safety." Marcus smiled, touching the leaves of a tomato plant that had somehow thrived in the artificial environment. "I've lived among my people for the past 25 years. They just happen to be scattered across dozens of species." The truth of those words became evident as the network neared completion. The alliance had grown beyond a military partnership into something approaching a galactic family. Trade flowed freely between species. Scientific knowledge was shared without restriction, and cultural exchanges had created art and music unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Marcus received regular updates from the human colonies through the new network. Humanity had indeed thrived among the stars, establishing settlements on dozens of worlds. But something was missing from their reports, a sense of connection to something greater than themselves. They had survived, but they had not truly lived. "Would you like to go to them?" Zira asked when she noticed Marcus reading the latest reports from human space. "I could arrange transport to any of the colonies. You could be among your own species again." Marcus considered the offer seriously. At 97, he might have 5 or 10 more years of life remaining. He could spend them in comfortable retirement, surrounded by humans who understood his references and shared his cultural background. But as he looked around the station, now bustling with beings from across the galaxy, all working together toward a common goal, he knew his answer. "I am among my people," he said simply. The first test of the new network came 6 months later when long-range sensors detected the return of the Vorthan Empire. Admiral Krosk had been true to his word, returning with a fleet 10 times larger than his original force. Massive dreadnoughts bristling with planet-killer weapons, support fleets that could overwhelm entire star systems, and battle stations the size of small moons. But the Alliance was ready. When the Vorthan fleet emerged from hyperspace, they found not the scattered defensive force they had fought before, but a wall of ships stretching across the entire solar system. Every Alliance species had contributed vessels, and human colony ships had arrived from across known space, carrying crews eager to defend their birth world. More importantly, Marcus realized as he watched the sensor displays from Terra Station's command center, they had achieved something the Vorthans couldn't comprehend. The network allowed every ship, every commander, every crew member to share information and coordinate actions instantaneously. It was as if the entire Alliance fleet had become a single, incredibly complex organism. Admiral Krosk appeared on the communication channels, but his arrogance seemed somewhat diminished by the sight of the massive Alliance formation. "You have chosen to make your final stand at the birth world of your pet human," he said. "How fitting. We will destroy you all at once and be done with this nuisance." This time it was Commander Thane who responded, his crystalline features calm and confident. "Admiral, you are looking at representatives of 43 species united not by conquest or fear, but by the simple recognition that we are stronger together than apart. You cannot defeat an idea whose time has come." The Second Battle of Earth lasted only 6 hours. The Vorthans discovered that fighting a truly unified force was unlike anything in their military experience. Every tactical move they made was anticipated and countered by ships that moved with impossible coordination. Their superior numbers meant nothing when every Alliance vessel knew exactly where every other Alliance vessel was and what it was doing. But the real turning point came when Marcus himself addressed the Vorthan fleet. The old engineer appeared on all communication channels, his weathered face calm and dignified. Behind him, the diverse crew of Terra Station worked at their stations. Cathari, humans, Zenthari, and dozens of other species all laboring side by side. Admiral Krosk, Marcus began. You've now seen what happens when beings choose cooperation over domination. Your empire is built on fear and conquest. Ours is built on gratitude and mutual support. Which do you think will last longer? For the Mao, first time the Admiral seemed to listen. I'm 97 years old, Marcus continued. I've seen the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of worlds. I've learned that the strongest structures are not built on foundations of stone or steel, but on foundations of trust and caring. You can keep coming back with bigger fleets, more weapons, greater threats, but every time you do, you'll find us stronger, more unified, more determined to protect what we've built together. The communication channel was silent for a long moment. When Admiral Krosk spoke again, his voice had lost its harsh edge. What are you proposing, human? I'm proposing that the Vorthan Empire join us, Marcus said simply. Stop trying to conquer the galaxy and start helping us heal it. Share your knowledge, your resources, your people. Discover what it's like to build something instead of tearing it down. The offer hung in space between the two fleets like a bridge waiting to be crossed. After an hour of silence, a single Vorthan ship broke formation and approached the Alliance lines. Then another, then a dozen more. By the end of the day, half of Admiral Krosk's fleet had defected, their crews choosing hope over hatred, cooperation over conquest. The Vorthan Empire didn't fall in a single day, but the crack in its foundation had been made. Over the following years, world after world chose to leave the Empire and join the Alliance. Admiral Krosk himself eventually became one of Marcus's closest friends, his military expertise proving invaluable in protecting the Alliance from other threats. Marcus lived to see his 100th birthday, celebrated simultaneously on thousands of worlds across the galaxy. The old engineer who had once shared his last meal with a hungry alien child had become a symbol of hope for billions of beings. Terra Station had grown into a city-sized complex, the beating heart of galactic civilization. On his final day, surrounded by friends from dozens of species, Marcus looked out at the stars and smiled. Earth turned green and blue below them, healing and beautiful once again.